Mic check 1 2. So as the Nintendo Switch 2 drama continues, there's one thing that I think most, if not all people are concerned about beyond just when we're going to be able to pre-order the new console. And that's the price. We all want to know what the price of the new Switch is going to be. And not only that, but also what are the prices going to be for the games that come out for the Switch 2. We already see that prices are going to be increasing by, 20 to 25% in some cases. And so a lot of people are just wondering, okay, how much more can we expect in terms of a price increase based on what we see happening with the tariffs? And the only reason why I bring up the tariffs is because in Nintendo's like public announcement with regards to their pre-orders and the reason why they had to uh, pull back on their pre-order date, they specifically mentioned the tariffs and the impacts that the tariffs are going to have on how they roll out their new console and more than likely what the pricing is going to be. And I only provide that disclaimer because every time you mention tariff, you'll always have that person who will say, well, the tariffs have nothing to do with it. But Nintendo's specifically saying that what they're doing is in fact because of tariffs. So let's just go ahead and just set that straight. The tariffs are the reason for what we're seeing with all this drama. And again, a lot of people are wondering, okay, well, what are the prices going to be for the new console? And the fear is price increases. Now, in my opinion, do I think that this tariff standoff is going to last for a long time? I don't. I think this is a lot of posturing between countries, and it's basically a negotiation tactic. Tariffs are a negotiation tactic that countries use to try and negotiate the best deals for them in terms of goods that are being imported and exported into and out of their countries. And I think this is just one very big negotiation. Now, of course, it is a negotiation that does come with ramifications and ripple effects on the average citizen, whether you're a citizen of China, a citizen of America, Vietnam, Canada, Mexico, wherever you're at. These governmental negotiations impact us. And so when you look at it just at a very micro level, at the consumer level, we just want to know how much more this is going to cost. Now, despite this being a negotiation, I do think that in the short term, unless there can be some agreement that's made, and I think there are some countries that are trying to negotiate, and they're trying to come to some sort of agreement. If we can come to some sort of agreement, best case scenario is that there is no impact to the cost of not only video games, but pretty much a bunch of things, because this isn't just impacting video games, it's impacting sneakers, clothing, other electronics, food, all types of stuff is being impacted by this. And hopefully, if we can come to some sort of an agreement, then perhaps we at the consumer level won't feel any impact outside of what we already anticipated the prices to be, or what was previously announced as the prices for the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 games. Now, if you're a person who's kind of hesitant and you're a little antsy and you're afraid that, prices are going to be too high, or, you're going to be priced out of gaming or game collecting or game purchasing for the Switch 2, there are a few alternatives that you can engage in while we wait for a lot of this to kind of hash its way out. And I think one of the things that a lot of people are doing is a lot of people are actually looking back at the original Switch. The original Switch library is huge. There's a lot of games for the original Switch. There's a ton of downloadables that you can get for the Switch, not to mention a ton of physical games that are available for the original Switch. And I don't think, unless you are a super avid Switch collector, a lot of people haven't even really tapped into 15 or even 20% of the Switch 1, the library for the original Nintendo Switch. So I think we still have a lot of meat left on that bone to attack. before we get too obsessed with the Switch 2. I know the Switch 2 is the new shiny object, it's the new shiny toy, but there's still a lot of meat on the bone of the original Switch in terms of content, games, things of that nature that a lot of gamers can really feast on while we wait to see what happens with the Switch 2. Aside from that, you've got retro gaming. You've still got a bunch of retro consoles that you can get at while they're still priced, I guess, decently. You know what I mean? Because you got to remember the Switch, not the Switch, but the retro game prices that we're looking at, we're still looking at retro game prices post 2020, which in some cases are still at an all-time high. But I would say that on average, we've probably come down 10 to 15% off of those 2020 highs for most retro games. But nevertheless, retro games are still high. A lot of those prices have still sustained despite it being, us being literally half a decade removed from those highs of 2020 and 2021. So I think, there's other options that are available while we wait to see what happens with these prices. And even if these prices do jump up, even if they do skyrocket, collectors and gamers still have a lot of optionality when it comes to the games that are available for them to buy, purchase, whatever. And you don't have to worry about, these games coming from overseas. A lot of the content, a lot of these games can be bought, sourced, traded right here, right in your neighborhood, right? There's a lot of options. And the reality is that, a lot of the games that we see coming out, they're just continuations of some of our favorite IPs, right? They're continuations of some of the same games we've played for a really long time. When you think about the new Mario Party game, it's just continuation of what started, on the N64 and then made its way to the GameCube. Mario Kart started on the Super Nintendo rather, and made its way all the way to the Switch, right? So, these are franchises that have been around for a long time. And I think now, as we stand on the brink of the next generation of Nintendo, now might be a good time to go back and take a look at some of those games and play some of those older games if you've never had a chance to. I think that might be something that the younger generation might find cool. If you've got a youngster or someone who wasn't around even during, say, the Wii days, because believe it or not, you've got some kids who weren't even born when the Wii was out. So, now might be a good time to kind of look into some of those. I don't see retro game prices skyrocketing. A lot of people are saying that everything we see happening is going to cause the price of everything to skyrocket. I honestly can't see how, the tariff situation will cause retro game prices to skyrocket. I don't see it. I really don't. Unless, the prices of new games just makes everyone just return back to retro, which I can't see that happening. But hey, there's a lot of things that we didn't think would happen that have happened recently, so you never know. But I say now, while we wait, we have options. You don't have to sit on your, on all 10 fingers waiting for this to see what happens with the Switch 2. You still got a lot of meat on the bones on the original Switch. You got retro gaming at your fingertips. And then, you've got PlayStation, you've got Xbox that you can go to as well, along with emulation, Steam, a lot of options for folks. So I know it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in all this Switch 2 madness. And I know there's a big fear about pricing and what pricing will be. But regardless of what happens, you do have those options. Best case scenario, these negotiations come to an end sooner than later, and we can put this whole tariff business behind us. Worst case scenario, these tariffs are put into action, and we do see a 25% increase in the cost of the Switch 2. And what that will mean in terms of sales, well, I guess we'll have to see, especially on the backdrop of the current economic climate. That will be very interesting to see how the general public responds to that, but only time will tell. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your biggest concerns are with the Switch 2. Is it pricing? Is it availability? What do you think is going to happen? And I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.